be open. She might be down. She might be down.
11 years ago, she wasn't cool with me being gay. So, like, things change.
Growth,
Yes.
growth, growth. Well, where are you? Where are you, Kevin? If you mind me
I'm in
asking.
Atlanta, Georgia. I've
Oh,
been here for
nice.
this will be my sixth summer here.
Oh, wow. So you've been, so at this point, you're
Hmm.
George. What is it? Georgian?
A
Georgian?
Georgian and
Georgian?
then an Atlantan.
Yeah, an Atlian.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like it. It really has become second home, or like truly
That's
home
awesome.
for me. Like, because
Yeah.
before I was like drifting in and out of like missionary Christian circles and
Mm,
uh, landed in dope ass queer community here in Atlanta, and
that's
everything's just
amazing.
been up and well, life is all this, but just like I will
Yeah,
say
yeah,
on the
yeah.
personal level, I feel better with every passing year.
That is
Um,
that which is the most important. Which
yeah.
so I love that. That's
Real
awesome.
quick, can I ask how do you pronounce your name,
Yeah, yeah. So it's Joel. Same
Joel?
as if you were saying Noel,
Hmm.
like the Christmas song.
I will
Except
not
Joel.
sing it because I'm sure
Thank
everyone
you.
does that as soon as you do it.
Yeah, people used to. People don't do it as much. I think as I've gotten older,
It's
and
not as cute.
and as people has grown as adults, adults tend to not do it. Children, definitely do.
Hmm.
Adults, though, I think we've gotten better.
Thank
Early
God.
20s, definitely for sure. But like late 30s, upper 30s, people are pretty much like, oh, okay. Most people actually ignore the complete like Noel comparison and just go zoom right in on like how to pronounce the name, which is
Well,
cool.
that's good. That's
Yeah,
progress for sure.
exactly.
What's the worst way that someone's tried to pronounce your name though? Like when they've mispronounced it.
I mean, normally people always pronounce it Joel,
Mm.
because like I mean, in Hebrew, right? Like that's
Hmm.
the enunciation. But my mom is West Indian. Most Caribbean folks pronounce it as Joel, or if they do, they spell it differently. So it'd be like Joelle, which is why I mean I added the accent on there, so I feel bad when people
Mm.
add it as well because it's not actually there. I did it because it's like I needed people to understand there was a different way to pronounce the name besides
Mm.
Joel.
I mean,
Um,
I think that's totally fine. I
yeah,
um I changed my middle name. So I'm mixed race. I'm like
yeah,
Mexican and then Scottish.
yeah.
And I added my legal middle name is Michael, but I've been calling
Yeah.
myself Kevin Miguel Garcia. When I
Mm,
learned about that and started reconnecting with my heritage, just
love
as like a
that.
little signal to other people, it's like, yeah, she looked like a white girl, but but clock the lips. There's something different there.
You see, you got it's a twist. You got to
And I will
twist
say, like, my favorite thing ever is whenever I go, like, I love, you remember when we went out dancing? Are you a dancer? Do you enjoy going out
Oh,
dancing?
yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you mean
There's
like
a
when we were going out dancing back in the before like the pandemic hit and
Yeah,
ruined everything? Right,
soon and very
gotcha.
soon, Joe
Cool.
Biden
Cool.
says if I'm vaccinated, I can boogie again.
She's yesterday, right
Yeah.
now.
So after this, I was like, my mom's like, you can't come in town this weekend, mom. I'm ready to be a slut again. Okay.
This is
Um.
the time. This is the
Anyways,
time.
yeah. But there's a place that live salsa music every Friday night. Great band.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
the way that I was moving, a guy just came up and started talking Spanish to me. And unfortunately, my dad was in the military. We didn't get to do that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't speak Spanish that well. And he's like, oh, but like you move like
Yeah.
us. I'm like, well, that's because. And it's like, so I was like, I'm so glad that it's still visible in some small way.
There's a part of it. It's part. It lives in you,
Mm,
Kevin. So that's all that matters. That's all that
yeah.
matters. The language
Anyways,
helps, but
yeah. Let me not talk about me. I want to talk about you, Joel, because you are such an interesting human. Uh, I feel like, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. You're like the way that you approach your platform. I'm taking notes because
Kevin, thank you.
you've got just like, let's pause. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, how would you introduce yourself? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better word, and thank you for that for those
Mm,
kind words, Kevin. I'm a storyteller, so and who was reared and groomed in the performing arts. So like whether that be rapping, whether that be spoken word, slam poetry, and that kind of allowed me the opportunity to be a writer and to share my words and my work with the world. But yeah, I'm a storyteller. I'm a little hood booger from the Bronx. Was a girl dad, you know,
mm,
um, and That's the best way, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the things that I lean into the most. My art, my Bronxness and my fatherhood, I think, for the most part, you
Mm.
know.
And the kind of thing, like the kind of things you share through your social media, especially like Twitter, like your Twitter and Instagram is everything to me.
Thank you, thank
And
you,
it is
thank you,
really
thank you,
because like you, I feel like are giving these, you write beautiful poetry for
thank you.
people,
Yeah,
and it allows people, and I think especially like your work, you're like creating it for, I would assume, like mostly black audiences,
correct.
to
Yeah,
say like, hey, like, you know, yes, we got to be strong, yes, we got to be, like, your healing is still so, is not optional, you have to do it.
yeah, yeah. And it's, I mean, the work for me is it's been transformative for me, and I think that's where the process started with me sharing like affirmations on
Mm-hmm.
social. And I mean, they are, I mean, there are affirmations because they are in as active of uh as they can be in the sense of the word. Like I am trying to affirm people and affirm spirits, but
Mm-hmm.
it really they're my thoughts. It's like things that I'm thinking generally on a whim, and it's
Hmm.
like it feels resonant enough for me to share, because if it's resonating, if the thought and the way that the thought is translated onto social resonates for me,
Yes.
then the assumption I think I have is that it's probably going to resonate to somebody else, because we're all interconnected. That
Mm-hmm.
interconnectivity, I think, lives very much on social. Like we see it happen all the time. I think sometimes we're just not
Mm-hmm.
aware of it because we're so busy being
Mm-hmm.
social and being on social. And so
Right.
for me, it's been the social media is just another opportunity to utilize a platform to try to convey a message, whether
Mm-hmm.
that message is, Black liberation or Palestinian liberation or,
Mm-hmm.
queer transgender liberation, whether it's, like a conversation about homelessness or poverty or healing or joy. For me, I'm a human being. So for me, it's about expressing the need for more humanity and compassion
Mm-hmm.
across those intersections, and trying to and utilizing social media as a tool, as another
Mm-hmm.
tool in the toolbox
Yeah.
in order to do that.
I think that's what is so I like what I've loved about kind of growing up in. Is do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Of course, I know I'm 38.
Okay, I'm 31. God, I almost forgot. I'm like, wait.
it gets
Um,
it gets worse, Kevin. You start
that's
you
what they
start
tell.
forgetting
Well,
more.
it's like
Yeah, yeah,
everything
yeah,
is
yeah.
like after 30, everything just became a blur. So I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
it gets a little more blurry, but then it starts getting really clear. I mean,
Ugh.
granted, or it could be really clear forever, but I know for me it was real
Mm-hmm.
murky, real blurry, and then it got really super clear
Mm.
towards like probably want to say like the last 2 years or so. But continue, you were saying.
No, no. Tell me more about that. What was it about the past 2 years that caused you to get so clear on your vision?
I think I started letting go more of what I thought I was supposed to or needed to be.
Supposed
Um,
to. Yes.
like coulda, woulda, shouldas. There were a lot of those I think that I was living through as a
Mm-hmm.
means to, I mean, cope. And I think it's interestingly enough, a lot of the time I was spending, especially in these past 2 years, have been primarily around helping others process grief, right? Because I think
Mm.
a thing that I was very adamant about, and very early on, I think during the pandemic, was recognizing how much we were all suffering and grieving to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we were losing people, which was, I think, fundamentally the most important part of that. But I think at the end of the day, we were losing jobs, we were losing sources of income, we were losing
Mm-hmm.
relationships, we were losing our sense of community. Like, there were things that we were losing that we hadn't yet learned how to unpack or process. And a lot of us didn't have the language. And me, for one, had been grieving for a large portion of my life. And so, but grieving in a way of recognizing that there's joy and opportunity within that grief. And so, for all the things that I lost, I had been able to process that. And a lot of people hadn't gotten there yet. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I was, I mean, I don't like the term, but like I was fortunate enough to be in a position of to be able to help guide people through that to a certain
Right.
extent. And I think going through that process allowed me to get closer to my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
My mission has always been utilizing essentially, whether I knew it or not, but utilizing my art in order to decolonize,
Mm-hmm.
and help those who are oppressed, in marginalized communities who are oppressed, and using my work in order to do so. And I the past 2 years was really much very much a reckoning, because I realized
Right.
so much of that oppression was not just of the political, but of very much the spiritual. And like,
Mm-hmm.
how are those two things interconnected?
Right.
And recognizing, became very clear for me that, like, um, black and brown, BIPOC, LGBTQIA liberation, as much
Mm-hmm.
as it is about policy, as much as it is about voting or not voting or abolition, whatever, what have you, if we're not doing the internal healing needed in order to ensure
Mm.
that we're creating brave spaces for all those involved.
Hello.
You have a Lori Lightfoot, who like identifies as a queer woman, but who's very much an oppressor, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're a
You got your
person who's
Caitlyn
not
Jenners out here who's saying that, trans girls can't participate in women's sports,
like,
even even though she herself has participated in a women's golf tournament. But mm,
it makes it's dumbfounding, but at the same time, we're looking at folks who are not looking at ways to unpack trauma, their
mm-hmm,
own oppression, internal oppression. And if we don't do that, we're just going to have a bunch of people who essentially are abolishing the police, but are not abolishing like
mm,
abolishing the oppression within, that's
hello,
keeping them
wow,
from engaging with each other in a way that's healthy and safe.
mm-hmm,
And so for me, it was like a lot of the 2 years has been processing that, and my
mm-hmm,
work has allowed me to do that. And I think what it's done is it's helped move me forward in the
mm-hmm,
conversation, which was, if I'm being honest, was always the goal for me.
right,
Like, I knew there was more. There's always more, and there's even
right,
more now. Like, there's another level that I'm expecting to go with the work. I don't know where that is, but I'm open
mm,
to it. But the past 2 years have allowed me to kind of see
yeah,
more clearly how to get there, what that entails for me.
yes. What you said about, we'll have a lot of people abolishing the police, but we won't they have, like, abolishing the internal oppression that they have. And
Yeah,
that to
yeah.
me is key. A lot of things, I come from evangelical spaces, and
Mm,
so
mm,
a lot of my audience is white folks who are deconstructing, and
yeah.
um, recently it's kind of skewed more like queer femmes and
Mm,
non-binary folks, which is very exciting to me. It's like,
yeah, that's very
my
cool.
people are finding me. This is great.
That's
But
very cool.
what I notice a lot in, especially queer spaces, especially queer faith spaces that have been around forever, and I'm going to just say queer Christian spaces especially,
Yeah.
is that, I'll say, like, when I first came out, I was still a fundamentalist in every single way except for it's
Mm,
cool to be gay, until someone pointed out to me my own heritage, and I had to start
mm,
picking back those layers. Um, because a lot of people, like you are correct, people to address all things, not just like, this one thing that you had. Oh, I can't get married in the church because I'm gay and Christian, but just like, my trans friends can't get health care, or my black friends are getting shot. Like, it doesn't
yeah.
get past this initial thing that kind of like, it's proximity to white privilege and the mythical norm. The closer you are to,
Mm,
like, cishet white male,
yeah.
especially for gay white men, like,
Mm,
they can bypass all of these things, and they
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
realize,
Yeah.
you're not even doing something in your own interest, right?
Yeah.
That's what blows my mind, is
Yeah.
like how,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
as Drake once said, I can't see it because the money's in the way.
I mean, yeah, capitalism at its finest, and I think part of
Hmm.
that. I'm trying to get the lighting here too. The lighting is just all. Am I
It's
coming in clear?
You're coming in clear, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I can see your beautiful smile, and let's give it.
Okay, thank you. I think. I mean, what I worry about is like, and I see it happen often when I bring up Lori Lightfoot. I think of how easy it is for us to think that marginalized communities cannot oppress each other, and it
Hello.
happens. It happens in the Black community, and
Hmm.
patriarchy plays a role in that. Of course, white supremacy as well. But I think, and I was
Hmm.
actually having a conversation with a very good friend of mine about this yesterday, because I was talking about Buddhism and the practice of Buddhism, and
Hmm.
the idea of detachment and detaching ourselves from
Hmm.
identities and a version of self, right?
Right.
Because we so easily define ourselves as Joel the black man,
Mm.
or
By these bodies that we're in.
right, like these physical things, these vessels that we do not stay in forever at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're very finite, and having to reckon with that and say, like, I'm more than Joel the father, Joel the partner, Joel the artist, and who
Mm-hmm.
am I if I'm not those things? Which is a very scary
Mm.
concept for a lot of folks. Like, who am
Right.
I if I'm not an activist, right? Like, who am
Right.
I if I'm not like, who am I if I'm not working all the time? These are the things that
Oh
we
shit,
generally
yeah.
don't ask ourselves. And like, I have to ask myself that because I love work. Like, work is what I do. And so having to create space and energy and time that is not about me physically working and
Mm-hmm.
creating the thing and resting and stillness is a practice. That's also part of my practice. But
Yeah.
knowing that I see it happen in spaces at times from our own marginalized people who are not doing the spiritual work needed to unpack things. So
Mm-hmm.
we're showing up and we're protesting, but we're still cursing out our children, or we're still, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
like not taking care of our community in the fundamental ways of like
Mm-hmm.
recycling or lowering our carbon footprint. Like, there are things that we don't generally pay attention to, A, because we don't have the flexibility of time as marginalized people, or
Mm-hmm.
energy because our bodies have been commodified by capitalism and work and all these
Mm-hmm.
other things. But at the same time, what I realized is that we have a choice, unless, of course, you do suffer from some kind of mental health disorder that's preventing you from doing so. So if you are
Mm-hmm.
bipolar, or if you have ADHD or mood disorder, or
Mm-hmm.
things that will make it more difficult for you to actually genuinely decide on your own to
Right.
make a conscientious decision about how you're going to show up for your joy or your healing or whatever. Outside of
Mm-hmm.
those things, like, we have a choice every single day, and
Yeah.
we choose differently sometimes. Like the gif that I've
Mm-hmm.
been the not even really the gif, but like the memes that have been kind of circulating, like the I choose violence or I'm choosing violence, which I love, but I feel like we've been choosing violence for so
Mm-hmm.
long that we don't know what peace looks like.
Hello. Come on.
Right? And like, that's scary because it's not the norm, and anything that lives outside of the norm is very much a scary thing for us to sit with. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think the work, and I think, and I feel like I can speak for both of us, the work, like in spaces that you create, that I create, is really about what does it look like on the other side of that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Yes. What does it look like? And also, like, to see yourself as the recipient and inheritor of those things that you already imagine could be. To,
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
not see your, like, I feel like, I mean, this is like flashback to like my when I was a super pious, ex-gay evangelical, and I was trying really, really
Mm,
hard to. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be like Moses, and I'm gonna go back with my fabulous stuff, and I'm gonna like set all these homosexuals free. Um, but like I was like, no, I'm not Moses. I am the children of Israel. I am the one who's being
mm,
led, and I
yeah,
need to recognize that like there are people who have gone before me who actually have laid a foundation to allow
mm,
me to imagine that
yes,
my life could be better. And
yeah,
I feel like I owe it to my ancestors, to my grandparents who never knew rest,
mm,
um, to my father, God rest his soul, who also just like, he was an asshole in life, but just like he never rested
yeah,
himself.
yeah,
And it's because he was 29 years military, he believed in an American dream, yada,
yeah,
yada, yada.
yeah,
And so it's like, I have the space now. And just like, and it
mm,
might not be a lot of space,
yeah.
but it is enough space for me to take a 30-minute nap in the afternoon.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hello.
And I think that acknowledgement of our forefathers and mothers
Mm-hmm.
and and non-binary individuals who have kind of laid the groundwork for us to show up to
Mm-hmm.
it. And this is not a judgment, but I think we do ourselves a great disservice by
Mm-hmm.
trying to um move in a way that doesn't acknowledge the work that's already been handed to us, right?
Yes.
And like, it makes me think about parents and parenting styles a lot when you think about the conversations that I think I've been having, that I've been having that have been going on recently with it's like I struggled and suffered, so you have to struggle and suffer. Like
Yes.
I
Oof.
had to mow the lawn, for in 3 feet of snow while it was raining hell
Mm-hmm.
and hail. You need to do the same thing, and it's like we do the work so that the generations that come after us don't have to do as much work.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that's also been like when I think about the space that I'm trying to curate for my family, and not just like my partner and my children and my co-parent, but like my community. It is creating work. So like when I think about my nephew I've gone through the fire, so he doesn't have to. He's
Mm-hmm.
gonna have his own fires to put out because he's a
Yeah.
human being, but
Let
I
them
don't
not be the
his
same.
yeah, what I'm saying? Like it doesn't have to be and it shouldn't, if
Mm-hmm.
we're doing the work
Right.
correctly, I think. And so that's when I hear you talk, that's what it makes me think about. Because like
Mm-hmm.
also when we think about those who came before us, it's not just the genealogical aspect of that, but
Mm-hmm.
then also again like the ancestral, like when I think of my ancestors, I think of writers, I think of Toni
Mm-hmm.
Morrison, right? You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like I think of those who have laid the groundwork, like the Audre Lordes of the world, the Octavia Butlers, like
Hello. Hello.
and even the elders who are still here. For me, it's very much recognizing that that work was done so that I have the ability to lean into my blackness and my humanity and write about it,
Mm-hmm.
and write about it in comfort, in
Mm-hmm.
relative comfort, like there's a privilege here. You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure.
Like I was thinking about this morning in like a poem I was trying to write, because the idea that I can wake up and not have to worry about being bombed, that is a
Yes.
privilege. Like
Yes.
that is a privilege that I need to be aware of. Like I'm looking outside in Brooklyn, people are walking freely, like in a block that feels like their own, like they have
Mm-hmm.
ownership of it. Like there are people who don't have that luxury, and so
Right.
if I'm not aware of that privilege, it is very easy for me to forget those who laid their lives on the line in order for me to have this privilege to begin with.
Mm-hmm. And that right there, that acknowledgement is, I think, a it's like the acknowledgement, and then I think a lot of people, because again I work with a lot of white folks, is like they get so caught up in that where they're just like, well, I don't know what to do. I was just like, I just was born into this, and it's like,
Yeah,
my friend,
yeah.
like, there's nothing to do. It's just like, hey, just examine it, see it, and then ask, what is mine to do now?
What is my
Who is mine to help? Who is my mother?
mhm.
Who is my brother? Who is my sister and father?
And that is so Christian.
Right?
It's like
So
it's
fucking
very
simple.
it's not hard to articulate, but it is hard when it feels like your privilege is now being brought to question. And a thing about privilege, I can understand why people are in fear of having to acknowledge their privilege, because privilege comes with power, and no one
Mm-hmm.
wants to give up power. Like whether it
No.
be the president of the United States, president of a company that they've helped build, like
Mm-hmm. President
I
of
think
a.
like it's there are there are so many there are so many instances where power dictates how people maneuver in the world, and so
Mm,
we acknowledging the privilege is us just being able to say I benefit from something, and how do I ensure that the rest of my community does so, which again is very Christian.
yeah.
When we look at how Jesus walked the earth,
Hello.
it was like there is nothing more like Jesus recognized the privilege in his power, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it and I think it translated into how he showed up for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you were a sex worker or a leper, it didn't really matter. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have something to offer to you, so here you go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, privilege.
Yes. And then also, like you saying, it's like Jesus approached everybody exactly the same, including like the story that comes to mind. God, I'm such a fucking. I got my degree in Christian practical theology, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But the story of Zacchaeus, the tax collector, right?
Yeah,
Someone
yeah,
in
yeah,
power who apparently was also just like, he was, I believe he was a Jew, but like he was a
yeah.
Jew working for the
Don't get me
Romans.
to yeah, yeah.
So
Don't
like
get me there.
levels,
Yeah,
levels, levels. But then
yeah.
Jesus says like, "Hey, I'm going to come to your house today." And then basically Jesus is like, "What are you going to do about this?" It's like, people tell me shit, and he's like, "Well, I guess I'm going to pay back everything." And so it's like, even for like, it's one of those things. I look at people in power, and because of that story, I'm just like, there's hope. But like the thing is, if you're the person in power, and you can't, like when Jesus said, you got to see it in all these other people. You got to, like, when
Mm-hmm.
you help the homeless, when you help the widow, when
Mm-hmm.
you, like, that was for me.
Yeah.
But just like, and
Yeah.
that's where, like, I think like Zacchaeus came to a forefront, is just like, oh my goodness, you're right,
Yeah.
this is fucked
Yeah.
up. But
Yeah.
until people are willing to recognize they've been fucking up a little bit, like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing, is like people equate the admittance of
Mm-hmm.
their sins with
Yep.
damnation or
Yep.
condemnation, when
Yep.
really the admittance of sin, or like the confession of sin, just is just saying, hey, I want to confess, I want to change my mind, I want to repent, and then forgiveness. I'm back in forgiveness, meaning I'm just coming back to home, I'm coming back to the
Mm-hmm.
family.
Yeah.
Sorry to get
Yeah.
theological and like
No, no, that's great. No,
buff.
no, because no, because like I think what you're that a what you're talking about is bringing folks closer to God or to whatever the image
Mm-hmm.
of God is, but
Right, right,
then
right, right, right.
also sharing that story, I recognize very much how Jesus is holding the guys accountable, which I
Yes,
think
there's
is
accountability.
which right it's and I think America has done a very poor job of holding itself accountable.
Yes.
Others have tried to, and I think when people ask when will America change, it will. America will change when America decides to reckon with its past,
Hello.
and it doesn't. In doing that is admitting sin. It's admitting like there have been
Mm-hmm.
sins, there have been transgressions against people, and it is very easy to say like I wasn't there for it or it
Mm-hmm.
happened before my time, and look how far we've come. And it's like if you're not, if you can't willfully acknowledge what America was built upon, or you continue, or all we're really doing is continuing to build a home on a very shitty foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and at one point, at a certain point in time, that foundation is going to crumble. I don't know when, but that's what happens, you
Listen,
know?
this America is a house built on sand. The storm is here, baby. Like
Seriously.
global, like Miami's gonna sink. Like
Yeah,
she's
gone. Bye.
hello. I wanna shift ever so slightly just to ask
Yeah.
about your practices,
Yeah.
because that's something I focus on a lot with my clients and my work, and just with other people, is just asking,
Mhm.
how's your practice? What are you doing? So like for you, daily practices, like you got any lunar cycle practices? What you got?
Nah. I'm not that dude, Kevin. But I think meditation, not as often as I'd like to when we talk about a daily practice. But I think practicing gratitude is probably my greatest practice.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I do daily. Because of the weather is warming up, walking
Mm-hmm.
therapy is very much a thing for me. Like no music in my ears, just kind of very much focused on my breathing, on walking, and
Mm-hmm.
really taking in the environment, the sounds and sights of New York because it's such a glorious being.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just I mean, those are really it. Like it's my mindfulness practice. I think is a combination of all those things, and so
Mm-hmm.
it is being it's trying to be as hyper aware as possible, and that's not all the time, but like when I'm focusing on my breath, when
Mm-hmm.
I'm focusing on how I'm engaging with people in the community, when I'm being intentional and thinking about not just how I'm showing up, but how I'm speaking to people, how I'm delivering and conveying a message. And like all those things are aligned with my mindfulness practice. And so
Mm-hmm.
that for me is the thing. Like, and that is very much my everyday showing up in the world. I don't get it right all the time. Nobody does, but
Mm-hmm.
that is very much like my well-being is contingent on that, and I know when I'm not doing it. I can tell when I'm just
Oh
kind of
yeah.
coasting, right? Like I'm kind of just going through the motions, which is very much anti me. Going through the motions is not a thing that I enjoy or like to sit in. It's a space
Mm-hmm.
that I sat in for a number of years in my young adult years, but it's really mindfulness and gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
the two ways in for me on a daily basis.
Mm. That's brilliant. And it's so, when you were saying like I can tell when I'm not doing it, same. It's like, so
Yeah.
when I was in school, I got my undergrad in music, and like my
Oh,
professor would
cool.
always say like, if I don't practice one day, I can tell a little bit. If I don't practice 2 days, I can definitely tell. If
Mm,
I don't practice for 3 days and I come back, there's just something different.
yeah.
And I think that's like the thing is like a practice, whether if it is just something as simple as gratitude
Hmm.
or as simple as
Yeah.
breathing. Um, that the work of like creating the container for which peace can be filled and you can like just be in
Mm,
it,
yeah.
that's the stuff. And
Yeah.
it can be um something A Course in Miracles says, because I'm a Course in Miracles kind of girl, is that just like, if I am not at peace, something has gone wrong. I've forgotten who I
Mm,
am, I've forgotten where I am.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
so
love that. I love that.
whenever I think about like, if I'm knocked off my center, if I'm not at peace, something has gone wrong.
Hmm.
Let me reset, think about what happened.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
causing me to stress out so much that like I would give up a moment in the presence of love of myself,
Mm, yeah.
And it does take time. And also like this past Monday, last week I was like, okay, I'm planning a tour, gonna do this, gotta
Hmm.
get this done. I
Yeah.
went into like over function mode and just
Yeah.
would do like 5 minutes of
Mm,
meditation. Okay, now I got to get into work.
yeah.
But then like Monday came
Yeah.
around and kicked my ass to the curb, and
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I hear you. Let me come
Hmm.
back. And as soon as I stopped, I was actually able to get things done. As soon as I
Yeah.
slowed down,
Yeah.
I could see the way out.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that.
yeah, I want that for more people, and I think
Yeah.
that's like your presence on the internet, your work, your words. I think you give it to a lot of people, and I'm
Uh,
so
Kelly, thank
thankful.
you.
Like
Thank
seriously,
you.
like you are a good reminder for so many people to just be gentle and easy, and that is that's healing.
And that's the fruit, man.
Hello.
And again, like I was telling you earlier, when I'm saying these things, I'm reminding myself first, like
When a
it's a
good
kick in the
preacher
ass for
always preach to
me,
themselves first. Come on now.
like this is the work that I need for me. And like, even, like part of, like, even when I'm talking about the practice, part of that is also sharing, um, sharing, space and time with those who are also doing the work. So like, even this
Hmm.
conversation for me has been healing, because it is a
Yeah.
reminder of like, okay, where else am I being as still, as I can be? And even like, Marianne Williamson, for her zaniness at times, like
Hmm.
Course in Miracles is a wonder when we're talking about how to show up in love and
Hmm.
utilizing love as a practice and peace, right? And if I'm not at peace, recognizing that something is off. What is off? And because a lot of us are kind of unfortunately walking around in this space and in circles because we're not aware that things are off, and I think that's actually
Oh
been
yes.
that's
Yeah.
been the biggest thing for me right now. And it's, when we're talking about like your audience, right? I think the conversations I've been having recently has been surrounding who my audience is and who my audience isn't. And do I want to focus on those who are not aware of what needs to be shifted in their world? Like, there are
Hmm.
those who are practicing misogyny, who are practicing ableism, who are practicing, you know, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, all these other things that are dangers to our community as a whole.
Hmm.
And what I'm realizing, and it's a scary realization for me, and it's not fully developed yet, but I think, and I've said it before, it's like my job isn't to convert racist into anti-racist, because that's not going to happen. My job is to give
Hmm.
anti-racist bigger bullhorns, right? Like, that for me has always kind of been the thing. But it's a sad thought to have, to think that there are people who not are irredeemable, because I think everyone is
Hmm.
redeemable, but I think people have to want to show up for the work. No, it didn't
Right.
take everybody on the boat, right? Like not everyone made that ride. And so I think
Hmm.
there are a lot of folks who we have to figure out a way for, like when we talk about abolition and restorative justice, which I think restorative justice is the part that gets least talked about, but it's probably to me the most important.
Hello.
Like, how do we how do we forgive? How do we hold people accountable and hold their feet to the fire while also forgiving them, right? Very much when we look at, again, to like from like the theology perspective, like how are we
Hmm.
forgiving the sin? like acknowledging the sin while also forgiving it. I think a lot about those who are like street harassers or catcallers, those who are
Mm-hmm.
rapists,
Yes.
those
Right.
who are Trump supporters, like people, and
Jesus.
like I like the people who are harming communities.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that we need to automatically bring them back into the world, but the idea
No.
that I can't change that person because they are very unaware, and I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
argue with them because they're not in a space to
Mm-hmm.
receive what the message
Yeah.
is, right? So my job is to like get with the Kevins of the world, get with
Mm-hmm.
the others in the world who are doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
and mobilize us, give us more money to do more things.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, capitalism sucks, but it's also here.
Yeah,
And
at least
like
till,
it,
until our children rise up and create the socialist paradise of my dreams.
you, and that's it. It's gonna take more than like the activists and and queer
Mm-hmm.
and black Twitter standing up in solidarity. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
large portion of America that is anti a lot of the things that we're standing up for. Like a large portion,
A
you know.
huge
And
portion.
I think it's easy to forget that because so many of us are enclaved in our circles of support. While we're seeing the trauma, we're also like,
Mm-hmm.
but we're here, we're mobilizing. Your grandma isn't, your great
Mm-hmm.
uncle doesn't care, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe your nephew doesn't care. But like there are people who are very much who aren't mobilized but don't care. But there are people who aren't aware but maybe want to care. And like I can focus my energy on them and I can focus my energy on the people who are already showing up,
Right.
you know? So like that's what I get. All that full circle is like when I think about people who show up to like my IG lives and stuff, and it's the folks who are doing the work, which I
Mm-hmm.
love. But it's like, man, I want the brother who doesn't who is catcalling, who like
Yes.
like showing up, but they're not going to because they're not aware of it being a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do you communicate that to them that it's a problem, and then and have them care about it?
Mm.
Repetition becomes a thing. Like we have to repeat the same messages over and over again to those. But then
Mm-hmm.
some of that is like figuring out what is the equal balance of dealing with that while also sharing space for those who are already doing the work, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially me brain dumping all of this onto you right now. But that's where
Listen,
my brain is right now.
that's the same question I have, and that is yep. I shrugged my shoulders like, yes,
Yeah,
those are things
yeah,
we all need to figure the fuck out because it is
yeah.
because I feel like this summer I'm going on tour. I'm driving
Awesome.
around the US. I'm very excited.
There
And
you
I'm
go.
mostly excited because it's like for the first time for some of these people they're going to be in the same room for the same time or at least in the same space with one another.
Yeah, yeah.
People who all have these same ideas and like you can organize religion around the right thing,
Mm,
and even people
mm,
across different religious
mm.
lines.
Yes,
Um,
yes, for sure.
and I think that's the opportunity that many of us are excited. I don't know. That's what I'm looking forward to in the coming months.
I like that.
I don't want to keep you because I am back to back podcast calls today. Apparently, I'm
Look at you.
very
You hot commodity.
industrious today. Um,
Indeed.
but
On a
thank you.
Saturday, no less.
I know with my mother coming in town, just truly
Yeah,
just.
yeah, yeah.
I did know earlier this week. I said I've said yes to too many things recently. We're gonna scale.
Mm.
So like
I love that.
yeah. So we've
I love
we're
you
no,
scaling it, not like saying yes to 20 things. The other part, like you
yeah
being like, let's tell about it.
yeah. But I gotta come back on that. So next week is a lot more restful.
Good.
Before I hang up, please tell me or tell humans who are gonna listen to this where they can find you, your work, etc.
Yeah, fairly simple. I am Joel Leon on Instagram. On Twitter, it's Joel, aka M as in Mary, A as in Apple, G as in great. Joel, aka Mag. Mag used to be my rap name. Another whole conversation.
For the second
Um,
time when we do
yeah.
VH1 behind the music,
I miss that so much.
the
Um,
unplugged sessions on MTV too.
oh
Shoot.
man, yeah, yeah. I have the Nirvana unplugged sessions vinyl here because it's my favorite.
Do you have
It's
the
fun.
unplugged Lauren Hill sessions?
No, I was trying. I actually tried to buy those and I didn't see them anywhere. I'm gonna like Tower Records still sells records digitally, so I'm gonna.
Hmm.
I had signed up to let them notify me when it becomes available. I haven't gotten email yet, but when I do, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
but nah, like pretty much those are the places where you can find not just the affirmations, but my bio and stuff is hyperlinked in there, so you can get the myebony.com weekly column
Mm-hmm.
shows up in that in that bio work. my medium.com writing show up there. The music stuff shows up there. The books show up there as well. So I'm not
Mm,
hard to find. If you search Joel Leon on
mm,
Google, I come up pretty quickly. So
mm. Got any other things you want to promote? Any other upcoming events that
yeah, I mean, we don't have a date yet, but I mean, if people are tuning into the channels, to the social channels, myself and my bestie Arthur Lewis are going to be performing live in front of actual human beings again, which is nice. At Rockwood Music Hall here in New York, towards the
sweet?
end of June, which we're really excited about. You know, working on the essay collection, which will hopefully be in a Barnes and Noble near you in a year or so. Still very much WIP work in progress, but
Mm,
you know, it's the work is happening,
yeah.
So as
What
long
a
as we're
treat you are, Joel. You're
thank you.
like seriously.
Appreciate you.
I it's very few times I can bat ideas around like this with people who like I feel like I'm like wow, like we're it's juicy and fun. So
Y-
I'm really grateful. So thank you.
Same. This has been great. This has been great, Kevin. So thank you for having me. Thank you for reaching out
For
about this because
sure.
this has been